And we're live. What's up, everybody? Today's going to be a nice, casual, lighthearted session. I'm going to share some thoughts about my recent conversation with Norman Finkelstein, and then we'll just go with the flow. We can do audience questions. We can bring audience members on to share. Let's see how it goes. I see chat's already active. Shout out to our community members. Let us know where in the world you're coming from. By the way, how's my audio? I bought a new mic just to improve audio quality, but there's these two knobs on the side, and I don't know what they do, so I don't know if it's set the right way. I guess if we have any sound people or anybody here who has experience with mics, what do the two knobs do? How should I set them? How does my sound? Let me know. Let me know. A lot better than the headphones. Cool. Okay, audio's great. Great. Good to see we have people from Paris. Awesome. See some Israelis in the chat. Great. Nice little mix. Oh, so Nathaniel is saying a little buzzy. Okay, well, how do I make it less buzzy? Is it less buzzy now? Or is it less buzzy now? Whatever, maybe now's not the time to do. We have a greetings from New York from Rita. Hi, Rita. Okay, we'll get started. So first, I just want to share my thoughts in general on Norman Finkelstein as a person and how he's perceived in the world. When I always knew him to be a controversial figure. I mean, I've seen some of his lectures in the past. I've understood his rhetoric to be inflammatory, but only after advertising that we're going to have him on the show did I realize how visceral of a reaction many Jews and many Israelis have to Norman Finkelstein. It's not just viewing him as anti-Israel. It's not just acknowledging that he's inflammatory. It seems like there's I know hate is a tough word, but it seems like many Jews hate, or at the very least despise, Norman Finkelstein. And I really, try to understand where this hate or anger, at least, is coming from. And through listening to my Jewish friends who, shared with me why they despise Norm, and through researching him more, I finally understood. I get why he's despised in the Jewish community. Norman has done many things in his career. Put his criticism of Israel aside, it's not rare to see him engage in an anti-Semitic trope. He does this I've seen him do this on a few occasions. Also, he's constantly comparing Israel to Nazis. Many consider this to be anti-Semitic. This was what our conversation was about. I decided not to frame it as anti-Semitic because I knew he would be open to hearing that narrative. And this is really another point that I think upsets many Jews about Norman Finkelstein, is that he's very dismissive about anti-Semitism. Like whenever Jews bring up their concern with anti-Semitism, he's dismissive. He delegitimizes any concern someone might have. And even more so, if Norman were to say all the same things he said throughout his career, but he wasn't Jewish, then most people would agree that he's anti-Semitic. It's only because he's Jewish has he gotten really a free pass on a lot of things he said. I recognize this. And if somebody thinks what I'm making outlandish claims, you just need to research things he said enough, and you can see that there's a long track list of anti-Semitic remarks, or just delegitimizing concerns of anti-Semitism, or things like Holocaust inversion. And this, people were upset that I'm platforming somebody who very well may use this platform to spread hate, for example. They also view Norman as somebody who has very much normalized anti-Semitism because he's a Jew who is doing it, so he'll go to far left circles or just left-wing circles and say certain things that most Jews would agree are anti-Semitic, but he, for example, would not. I could just give one example. So recently, somebody asked me about the increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes during our recent um, conflict with Gaza, and he says that's not anti-Semitic. That's a result of what Israel's doing. So that to me, I imagine that he would not feel the same way had we framed it differently. Let's say racist attacks were to increase the summer of 2020 because of all the protests and riots, right? If somebody were to say, well, this increase in racism isn't really racism, it's just people responding to rioting. Or, for example, if someone were to try to justify the increase in Asian hate, for example, say, oh, this isn't anti-Asian hate. This is people are just upset that what China's doing to the Uyghurs, for example, right? This logic doesn't hold true, especially not for people who identify as left. But Norman has no problem dismissing that anti-Semitism because he somehow attributes it to Israel's actions, regardless of if Israel's actions, in one way or another, fuels anti-Semitism. The dismissal itself seems to be inconsistent with how we would view group hate. It doesn't matter what Israel does. Attacking somebody for some characteristic is not justifiable, and he tries to justify it. So I understand why he's so strongly despised in the Jewish community. Um, I personally don't have those feelings towards him, and I think first of all we just need to recognize that everybody's different. Um, you know, naturally, I don't get super triggered when I hear people say hateful things towards Jews or towards Israelis. It's not that I don't see anything wrong with it, but it just gets me less upset. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't be upset. We need to acknowledge that everybody's different and how they respond to certain things. Now, I view Norman as very much somebody who in all likelihood carries deep childhood trauma. I think, even in our conversation, he very much expressed how a lot of who he is his childhood and values his mother instilled in him. And even though the Holocaust version, he ultimately acknowledged that his mother made him that way. I have sympathy for him. I have sympathy for him, but also I have a level of respect for him as well. Again, I view him as deeply traumatized, but I also see him as somebody who has dedicated his life to a cause he believes in. It goes without saying that we have very different approaches to how we engage in dialogue and how we try to convince people, and this was really what the majority of our conversation was about. But I'm choosing to see past his inflammatory remarks, his hateful remarks, and I'm also willing to forgive what he's done in essentially fueling anti-Semitism in left-wing circles, because I do think that is a very legitimate claim that Jews have made against him. I kind of see him as like a grandfather figure who had a difficult life, who has a funny sense of humor, and who I thoroughly enjoy speaking to, right? Now, when we're angry at people or when we hate people, we should ask ourselves what the purpose of this anger is. So let's say somebody's anti-Semitic, does something anti-Semitic, and a lot of people like get angry and they call that person out. That might incentivize that person to not engage in anti-Semitism any longer. So here we see how anger fuels action, and action can achieve results, right? That being said, I think at this stage in life, first of all, I don't think Norman is fazed at all by the anger towards him. If anything, I think it might fuel him. But I think it's fair to say that the anger that Jews have towards Norman, and this is true about anger in general, but the anger that many Jews are harboring within them towards one individual who himself is a Jew, is harming them more than it harms him, right? That's something we should always keep in mind with anger. It's hurting you more than the person you're angry at. It's something you're holding within you. That's why we should work to let anger pass fairly quickly. If it helps motivate or drive us, then we should use that. But we should not dwell on that anger too long because it eats us inside from within. So I'm choosing not to be angry at Norm. I enjoyed my conversation with him. I enjoyed speaking to him on the phone prior, and I plan to continue correspondence with him moving forward. What I want to ultimately say is this. If you choose to live your life despising, hating, or being angry at Norman Finkelstein, that is 100% your right to do. I am going to choose not to, and I hope you respect my right to not hate or be angry at him. We're all different. We all interact with this world differently, and I think this is one of those things we need to acknowledge, that different people are going to have different perceptions of people. That's my overall thoughts on Norman Finkelstein. As to the feedback I got, hold on, I see a super chat. Thank you, Nate Phipps. Can you have a trauma expert on to discuss how trauma affects one's ability to see the IP conflict? It would really frame these conversations. Nate, that's a great idea, and we're actually planning on doing that. I have somebody. I'm not going to shout out his name yet, but he is a trauma expert, and we are planning to bring him on the show. So stay tuned for that. Starhopper goes, you're so wise, Adar. Will you be my guru? Thanks, Starhopper, although I know you're being sarcastic. Hey, Gigi Green, I haven't seen you here in a while. Gigi goes, Adar is a self-loathing Jew. No, I actually, I enjoy being Jewish. I don't take some special pride in it because it's not something I accomplished or achieved myself. I was born Jewish, but I like myself. I like my people. So it's a shame, Gigi, that instead of engaging with people on their ideas, then you just engage in personal attacks. I know engaging with people on ideas is hard. It's harder than personal attacks, but I have faith in you. You could do it. Let me talk about the feedback I got. So first of all, whoever gave me feedback or just shared thoughts on the conversation, I truly appreciate it because it helps me learn and grow as a person. Most of the feedback I got was overwhelmingly positive. Again, this doesn't mean anything. I think people in general are more likely to message me sharing words of encouragement than sharing something negative, because people in general are nice. So I don't let it get to my head when I get overwhelmingly positive feedback. I definitely appreciate the positive feedback because, positive reinforcement is good. It makes me feel good. It helps motivate me to continue this work. So I definitely appreciate all feedback. The negative feedback, while it's much less fun to receive, I definitely appreciate that because I learn from it. So two forms of positive feedback that were received from this conversation. One, which was the most common one, which I also perceived it this way. They viewed it as a very interesting and meaningful discussion, one where they saw a different side to Norman and they heard his views on new topics, and many people were surprised or shocked that he acknowledged that Holocaust inversion is wrong and ineffective. That was my initial takeaway. Another form of positive feedback I heard, somebody messaged me saying that they feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders because it's like this boogeyman that was living in their closet disappeared, meaning they lived their whole life being scared of the person who is Norman Finkelstein, and this really humanized them, and now they have a little bit more compassion for that person. The negative feedback comes in two forms, one from the, I would say, pro-Palestine camp and one from the pro-Israel camp. The pro-Israel camp, and again, many pro-Israel people thought it was a great interview, but the ones who didn't, this is essentially their concern. They felt like I was very easy on Norm. They felt like he got away with a lot, that he made all sorts of claims that I didn't push back on. The pro-Palestine feedback was I got caught up just telling him about how his approach is wrong without talking about the issues. Now, to talk about that second feedback first, it's true that we didn't touch on much, but the concept of Holocaust inversion and how we decide to engage in activism is not simply just me questioning Norm on his approach. It's having a conversation with somebody about effective approaches. Um, so again, I don't view it as a distraction. I view it as essential. If you care about the cause, you should care about effective approaches to achieve certain goals that progress these causes. As to the feedback that I was easy on him and didn't push back on a lot, this is true. When it comes to responding to all sorts of claims he made, this was intentional. Going into this interview, I knew that we would have limited time. I knew that I would likely speak a fair amount less than Norm, and I wanted to stay very focused on certain topics. Look at it this way. Norman also, he takes his time to speak. His responses were 10 to 15 minutes. It turns out that he spoke for probably around 90% of the hour. Let's say, for example, he's making a claim, he's speaking. In what he speaks, he makes five claims that are worth pushing back on. What does it mean worth pushing back on? Maybe he omits certain information, maybe it's not entirely accurate, maybe it's slightly disingenuous. There's a lot of things Norman said that if you're pro-Israel, then you would probably get triggered by these comments, okay? So he takes 10 minutes and makes, let's say, 4 claims in that 10 minutes. It takes much longer to rebuttal a claim than it does to make a claim. Essentially, what would then happen is we would be having a back and forth on multiple different topics. The conversation would lose focus, and it would have been far less productive. I think an actual good example of a conversation that went that way, I actually think Noam Chomsky and Rudy Rushman went a similar way. I think Noam said a bunch of inflammatory remarks, and essentially the whole hour, Rudy, it seemed like he was on the defensive, needing to defend all the claims against Noam. I learned from that conversation and decided not to take that approach with Norman. I wanted to stay hyper-focused, and that would mean he gets to say certain things that aren't pushed back on. Now, there is a way to semi-solve this problem, but I want to just continue to make the case to why I think this was, in total, a positive conversation. And I'm very happy to push back and people explaining a different perspective. All the anti-Israel things Norman said are not new. You could find him saying that hundreds of times over the internet. If you know Norman Finkelstein, you probably know the claims he just recently made. The only thing that new that Norman said in our conversation, and again, new doesn't mean he's never said it, but it's novel. It's not common to hear him say, and I personally haven't seen him say it anywhere else, is him acknowledging that Holocaust inversion is wrong. Somebody who's dedicated his life doing this is acknowledging that it's wrong. I thought that was very profound. And I thought that him acknowledging that he does it because his mother instilled it in him, I thought that was also a very powerful moment. And I think, so the claim that this just gives someone a platform to spew anti-Israel propaganda, let's say, I think it's ultimately net positive because, again, all the anti-Israel stuff that he shared, you could find that hundreds of times over. But what you're not going to find is Norman Finkelstein acknowledging that Holocaust inversion is wrong. So I think the if you want to judge it net negative, net positive, I think it's clearly net positive because we got something wholly new, wholly unique, something that's been extremely controversial, something that in today's world is normalized. Will him acknowledging it on Sulcha convince people to not engage in Holocaust inversion anymore? No, but we could consider this a win in activism. One positive step in the right direction. what I was going to say, how we could change the format, because I think the format needs to be improved. And it will allow for a more balanced conversation. Ultimately, as I mentioned, Norman spoke for 90%. I spoke for 10%. It's hard for me to cut him off mid-sentence. I did a little bit, but I don't want me to need to continuously um, cut him short. But if there's a way to get it that there we have more of a back and forth, maybe his responses are like a total of 5 minutes each. I don't know if maybe that's something he would agree to. Maybe we could work with a timer, but this is just an idea I've had at how we could have more of a back and forth conversation rather than 90-10 as it was. If someone has other ideas for how we could create more balance in the conversations without me needing to be like very like strict and cut someone off after 5 minutes, especially someone in their older years, as we get older, our the speed at which we speak slows down. Like this is just natural. So, I do want to give him time. I don't want to need to interrupt him, but maybe find a way that he's conscious of the time being used. So it's a more back and forth. That's something I've been thinking of because I definitely think it would help make for a positive discussion. So ultimately, what I think about the conversation is, again, I would have liked to have it be more balanced in terms of time. Um, if I'm going to be very self-critical of myself, I thought I made a good case against Holocaust inversion. Obviously, the case could have been better. I watched it back, and I saw there's always a way to improve, and I should have been able to do what we did in an hour somehow in 30 minutes. That's an issue of practice or getting, um, you know, either practicing on how to conduct interviews in a more efficient ways or getting some great idea from the community. That's really why we're doing this live stream right now. I do plan on bringing him back. We've already spoken since. Just emailing him, it's like he's a pretty funny guy. Like he's constantly cracking jokes. So I do want to bring him back and continue the conversation where I left off. I think the fact that we were able to really, have a respectful conversation for an hour and actually find common ground for me is a reason to want to continue to do this. And um, so yeah, we're going to keep doing it as long as he's willing. We could have him on every few months and just continue to make progress on different topics. One topic that where we left off was him not wanting to speak to Israelis. He doesn't think there's any point speaking to Israelis. This is obviously something we disagree in, and if the whole next hour is dedicated to that and we find common ground, then I'd say that's also that's also a win. For those who are uncomfortable hearing the anti-Israel rhetoric, I hear that, I acknowledge it. I'm not going to challenge every anti-Israel thing he says. It would derail the conversation, but I will try to create a format that allows for less remarks that go unanswered. Cool. Let's see. I see a bunch of I see a bunch of comments. Hold on. Near Rofa, thanks for the 6 shekels. Do you think Norm is anti-normalization? I like that play on words you did there. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, he doesn't even think we should be speaking to Israelis, so I'm not sure he thinks Palestinians should. That being said, the whole premise of this platform is for Israelis and Palestinians to speak, and he knew that coming in, and he decided to come on. So. Let's see. LEG goes, as a Jew, I appreciate Norman Finkelstein, even if I disagree with him. He balances a situation in which many Jews are blindly supportive of Israel all the time. Ellie, I hear that. Let's see, Gigi, what are you so upset about? If you have a question, say it. Like saying you're a filthy liar, bro. Like we don't need to allow your toxic behavior in our chat. You know, like you could disagree without engaging in personal attacks. It could tell me, my friends who are more social justice oriented. Isn't it a little bit ableist to appreciate people who make good arguments rather than people who engage in personal attacks? Because there's obviously going to be a level difference in intellect for those who are just in comment sections engaging in personal attacks. Like, is that ableist to acknowledge that, like, to be harsher on these people? Because you do need to think about it. It's certain, like, expecting somebody to make a coherent argument is almost ableist in a sense. So actually, I'm thinking out loud. It's not ableist to tell people not to engage in personal attacks. It's ableist to expect somebody to be able to make a coherent argument. So what we're going to say is, if you cannot make a coherent argument, I understand that. You're still not allowed to engage in attacks, not in this chat. The internet is filled with toxicity. Go find another place to spread that poison, not here. Not here, not here. So Gigi, I'm trying to understand what you're going on about. Of course you're going to ignore me. Now pretend your feelings are more important than the truth and Jewish lives. Make a case. I will read your case to all our viewers. You're not making a case. You're just upset. Anyways, the Church of Delicious Meat goes, he compared Gaza to Auschwitz. He actually made the claim that Gaza was worse than Auschwitz. How did you let that go? I actually, that's something that I did push back on. I explained that the Palestinian population has quadrupled since 1948. Our intention is not to exterminate them. I made this case, so I'm not sure. Laika goes, ableism is about denigrating disabled people for being disabled. If it's about mental health, you have to draw boundaries and hold people accountable. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Okay, actually, let's talk about that, because as the platform grows, we have more and more of these, like, keyboard warriors. 100% of them, not 100%, almost all of them remain anonymous. But some of them we tolerate for fun. They've already become community members, like Starhopper. You know, Starhopper's, you know, here to stay regardless of their casual anti-Arab racism. We've learned to love Starhopper, but there's a certain amount of just hate that once it's in chat, once it's in the comments, it really takes away from the quality of the community we're bringing, right? Building. This is a community that can disagree on many different things. You know, as you see, the people we've platformed are from all the way on the far right to all the way on the far left. But if somebody's contribution is just to attack others without engaging and challenging the merit of people's ideas, then we should probably start being a bit stricter with how much we tolerate them. Because it's almost not the right approach to just laugh at them, because you need to think two things. First of all, it's either somebody who really has no ability to engage with ideas. It's hard for them to construct coherent arguments. But probably more so, it's not only that they're not able to. Constructing an argument is way harder than engaging in a personal attack. So it's just somebody who maybe can construct an argument, but just doesn't want to put in the work. But I think a better assessment is these are people who obviously are struggling in life. You know, they have some personality issue. And anybody who is literally spending their time attacking people online anonymously, you could know for sure that they're probably not like an emotionally mature and healthy human being, right? I mean, that's clear. So, you know, the quote I really love is, "Those who are hardest to love are the ones who need it the most." It's fun, like, joking with these people, but these people, we should really be more compassionate towards them. Now, while we're doing lives, we don't have capacity to just be compassionate towards every asshole in the chat. So the question is, do we let it go, or do we just get rid of them, and build a community of many people who know how to engage respectfully? Yeah, so yeah, Gigi, I gave you a chance to make an argument, and your argument is you are the racist, you care about everyone besides Jews. I mean, cool, bro. You know. Anyways. Trotsky or bust goes, Adar, it's not wise to attack your audience. I'm attacking a very small segment of them that I don't care if they stay or leave. These are people who are literally um, contributing negativity to the community. They're not bringing ideas to the table. They're not challenging anybody intellectually. They're just being mean. So yeah, I'm attacking those people. Fine. What's up? Anyways, let's see. Gigi, you got to go take a walk outside. I'm sorry you're so triggered. I don't know from what, but this is not healthy. Take a walk, relax, do some breathing, maybe a little yoga and meditation. I mean, I could feel your fury through the chat. I know it's not good for you. And it makes me sad that we're being entertained by your anger, right? So this is the challenge. You're contributing to interesting content right now, but it's at the expense of your anger and well-being. I don't want that to be what we're all about. Okay, so we could take questions if anybody wants to. If somebody wants to hop on the live stream to talk, I'd be happy to talk about that. Here, okay. So this is Iran Pierre goes, Norman should come back and should discuss something of substance. The entire discussion was off focus, in my opinion. So this is feedback actually a little bit different than what I've gotten, so I appreciate that, Iran. I don't feel like it was off focus. I feel like it, I mean, to an extent, yeah, but I think ultimately we made progress on an important issue, just it took much longer. So my critique would be not that it was off focus, but it wasn't extremely efficient. It took an hour to reach common ground on a point potentially we could have done in 20, 30 minutes. But I'm happy to hear you elaborate on that. Yeah, so now Gigi's calling for my death. So I'm gonna block him. Bye, Gigi. He said he hopes I go out on the street and am taken by a terror attack. Bye, Gigi. Good knowing you. I hope you get help. Anyways. Cool. Rika, you're asking why I blocked Gigi because Gigi literally called for my death. He said, go out to the street so you get taken by Michaber, by a terrorist. And he had multiple chances. So Starhopper coming to his defense, of course, maybe he just wants you to be more realistic about what you were supporting. Okay, well, then he should make that case, not call me a racist and call for my death. Come on, Starhopper. Come on. I love this one. When people think that banning people is authoritarian, Rika goes, that's authoritarian. No, it's not. I'm actually pretty much a free speech absolutist. This is a community here. Let me give you an example. Somebody shows up to a house party and starts acting like a dick to everybody. They get kicked out of the house party for being a dick. Is that authoritarian? No. We want to build a healthy community that makes progress on discussing important issues. somebody's just going to come in and fan the flames or be hateful, we don't owe them our time. We don't owe them our energy. This is a club, you know. Can't get along, then we're gonna kick you out or ask you to leave. Nothing authoritarian about it. It's literally, if anything, it's funny because Gigi, I know you're right leaning, but this is the result of the free markets, right? My channel, my rules. No, shouldn't you support that? Authoritarian would be if I was the government telling people what they can and can't do. But I hear you. I hear you. Anyways, okay, Iran, thanks for elaborating. Yeah, I mean, I think the entire discussion was focused mainly around his views on the Holocaust, but it would be more interesting for it to be around his stance on Israel-Palestine. So, okay, I hear that. If that was your expectation going in, as it was many people, then that conversation wouldn't satisfy you. I hear that 100%. Hopefully we get that. Zohar is asking, can you specify when did Norm say he doesn't speak to Israelis? His last like 5 to 10 minute monologue was about that. About he doesn't think we should be like there's no reason to speak to Israelis. Yeah, I see people want to join the live stream. I will send a link. So I hear somebody, Ellie, saying it would be interesting to see Elon Papian. So Elon has gotten back to my emails. He's willing to come on. Just need to set a date, decide the topic. Okay, we're gonna bring Nir on first. Nir, you ready?
Hey, what's
Nir,
up?
what's up? Good
All
to
is
see you.
good. Good to see you too. Here's the thing that the main issue that I have with the Norm. I was very triggered during the interview itself, but after a few days, I said, okay, this guy has his opinions. They're not that extreme. You can call him a self-hating Jew, but it's like you said, it's not very productive. The problem is, if he doesn't want to speak to Israelis, how does he expect to make any changes? If he maybe doesn't expect to make any changes, but how is this productive in any way? That's my main issue.
Yeah, so we obviously didn't get to that, but what I imagine he would say is that he thinks that progress can only be made by international pressure. So we need to pressure Israel as much as possible, essentially make Israel like, can you mute? Can you, yeah, thanks. Pressure Israel until they are really like have their backs up against the wall, and then they're gonna make drastic change. I don't think that's going to work. I think that's going to have the reverse effect. I think if we are in danger, if our back is up against the wall, that's going to make us more extreme. Um, Ultimately, we need to look for a solution that both sides are consenting to, that either side is enforced to, and working with Israelis is obviously a part of that. Maybe this is what our next conversation will be about, but I have a feeling that will be his approach.
I completely agree. Look at history. The more the international community is against Israel, the more the right in Israel gains power. So I totally agree that this will be the case if Israel will be pressured. Um, yeah, totally agree. I have nothing more to say.
Cool. Happy you joined us. And anything else going on? Anything else on your mind?
No, I did send you the email that I talked about earlier. So
Yes, I got it.
great. So we'll
Yeah.
continue over there.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool, Nir. Thanks always for your input and for the work you're doing behind the scenes. I appreciate it.
No problem. Bye bye.
Talk soon. I saw some other people in the waiting room, but now they left. Trotsky and Bust, I saw you here. Do you wanna come back on? Listen, please don't question why people are here in the chat. I see that everybody's allowed to view. Everybody's allowed to engage. I don't care where you're from, what you do, as long as you're going to engage in good faith with one another, then you're welcome here. Okay. If anybody else wants to hop on the live stream, let me know. I'll drop a link again. This is like kind of like a. I think we'll start doing this every Sunday. I'll do like a solo live stream where audience members can come on, and then Thursday will be like our debates and whatnot. Trotsky, oh cool, I see you here. It says device is not connected. So cool, Trotsky, I'm bringing you on. Like kind of like Hey Trotsky, what's up? Every Sunday.
Good, but I hear
Yeah, you gotta turn YouTube off.
what do I do?
Just X out of YouTube. Oh cool, I see you here. It says device is not connected. So
Can you hear me now?
yeah, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for joining today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I wish my camera was on. I don't know what's wrong.
There's a cam mic button at the bottom.
Yeah.
You could, it's maybe an audio,
Okay,
a video setting.
Here I am. But
Yeah, yep,
oh
you're
my
good.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Be fair to me. It's like 8 a.m. here.
All good. No
I
judgment.
haven't even showered yet, so maybe I should take the camera off. To me,
No, you're looking good.
oh, thank you. To me, there's one simple question. I could ask you this, you can ask Norman this, but the simple question is this. Let's say you are the Prime Minister of Israel, and let's say you have this majority that, of course, never existed in Israel. You have 70, 80 seats, whatever. What would you do that hasn't been tried before to make peace?
That's a good question.
That's a question that cannot be answered, and that's the problem here.
I think he would actually have he did a whole lecture. And again, I was hoping we would get to this because this is an area of disagreement between him and I, but he did a full lecture, and I could drop it in chat if I could find it real quick, about how he thinks that Israel is the one that's stopping peace from happening.
Okay.
And again, I won't recite his lecture, but he makes some interesting points as to why Israel and the U.S. are the ones that have ensured there isn't peace. They're the ones who stopped the two-state solution from happening. Now, there's certain historical claims he makes that I'm not qualified to challenge him on. There's a few hundred book gap between us in knowledge, but where I do feel like he's mistaken, I feel like it's almost disingenuous to make it seem like Palestinians have wanted two states, because even if the PA has recognized Israel's right to exist, it's never been popular in Palestinian society. Palestinians, by and large, don't want two states. Some support it, but some of the ones who support it just see it as progress in order to continue fighting. So it's disingenuous to frame it as only Israel is getting in the way of two states and Palestinians are waiting for it. But when you actually speak to Palestinians, and again, this isn't even like Palestinian friends of mine are telling me this. Honestly, they're like, no, of course we don't want two states. It's all Palestine. We want the whole land. So I think that even if the case could be made that Israel needs to do a lot more, and I agree with that Israel should do a lot more, I think that we need to be honest about where the Palestinians are at, what they believe, because if they're not on board with it, there's nothing Israel can actually do, right? There's a lot we could try to do, but ultimately, if Palestinians don't agree, they don't agree.
Yeah, it only takes one person to make a fight.
Exactly. Yeah, so I agree with. I mean, I agree that it would have been interesting. Let me share the lecture he did on this. Watch it. Let me know your thoughts. I mean, he makes some pretty strong points here.
I'm
Uh,
not one who takes him seriously. I mean, um, I don't know. I think he's just a self-aggrandizer. I think he. I mean, if first of all, he talks about being a Holocaust survivor, the children of Holocaust survivors. You know, I grew up. I'm older than I look. I'm like 60, and where I grew up, I saw a lot of people with the numbers, a lot of Holocaust survivors, and it's not that big a deal. And I think he used it. I mean, if he was children of Holocaust survivors and he was pro Likud, none of us would have ever heard the name Norman Finkelstein, right? The fact that
right.
he goes on the other side is what makes it, you know. But a Jew, children of Holocaust survivors, I think that makes his career. And I think that's where we're at here, that he's more interested in furthering his career than he is in looking for a real solution. That's my opinion of him. So I don't hold him in high regards, to be honest with you.
No, I hear that. Were you here for the opening of this live stream?
Today,
Sorry, you cut out.
today,
Yeah, today.
no, I was not.
Okay, yeah, because I explained pretty thoroughly why many Jews despise Norman, and I went into how he, in many ways, normalized anti-Semitism in certain circles. How he goes to the enemies of Israel and then says things that most people would recognize as anti-Semitic, for example. But because he's a Jew, he legitimizes that type of rhetoric. There's a few very clear cases where he's done that, and I can understand why that would cause someone to despise him. So, like, I'm definitely sympathetic of that view.
I
Um,
don't despise him. I just think he's entertaining. I think that's what he's doing here. I think he's just
hmm,
entertaining. He's creating a career out of this. This is his career basically. And
yeah,
if he came to his senses, so to speak, from what I would see as his senses, he would lose his career. So he'll never agree to anything Israel does. I mean, he does little things like I think he was against BDS or whatever.
yeah. I'm not even sure how. Again, it's hard to understand what motivates him. But if he only cared about his career, like, because
Okay.
Palestinians don't really, a lot of Palestinians don't like him because he was anti-BDS, because he supports two states, because he said right of return isn't realistic. So he said a lot of things, at
Yeah.
least in policy,
Right.
that are like moderate,
Right.
and they're seen as like pro-Israel stances. So many Palestinians don't view him as favorable. And he's working on a new book. This I just discovered when we were on the phone before going live. His new book that he's working on is calling out cancel culture, specifically on the left. So he's literally dedicating a book like against wokeness.
Right.
Like he's trying to piss everyone off, you know? if
Well, let me say something. One is I am a leftist, in case you didn't figure it out from the Trotsky bus. It's very offensive to me that I see people equating leftism with anti-Israelism, or what I call the new anti-Semitism. They just simply replaced the word Jew with Zionist, and that makes everything okay. I view this leftist anti-Semitism. The best example is I use is Jeremy Corbyn, where Jeremy Corbyn destroyed I don't want to say destroyed, but he really hurt the Labor Party because people on the left are not going to not a lot of them are not going to want to vote for an anti-Semite, and it's once you get out of this left-wing social media, most people don't differentiate between. They see the anti-Zionism as a new iteration of anti-Semitism. So I'm not worried about Israel. I think Israel is strong and Israel will continue to be, but I worry about the left basically that this is a new way to sabotage the left. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree to a large extent. I mean, definitely on the concept of the left eating itself, like what the woke left is destroying everything left of center that's not woke, right? So if you don't adhere to certain like ideas about social or racial justice, then you're going to be ostracized and attempt to be canceled. Obviously, I'm only talking about what is an extreme segment of the left, but they seem to be significant and growing fast. So yeah, I agree with that. You know, I used to think like 10 years ago when thinking about the Republican Party, I said this party is going to need to like transform drastically, or they're not going to stay relevant. And then the Democrats are like, hold my beer, let's adopt this like this woke social justice movement and stay as irrelevant. So it's almost like Democrats would have been. And again, I'm not registered as Republican or Democrat. Like both parties are garbage in my opinion. But
Yeah, they are.
it seems like Democrats just had to stay. One party just had to stay sane and normal, or become sane and normal to win. But no, they both.
I think it's on purpose. I think the Democrats, I think they do it on purpose. They don't want to be the party of the people. So the wokeness is a pretend the party of the people. That's what it is.
Yeah, I agree. It mobilizes them. It's if anything, it's like an extension of neoliberalism because it's very like social justice left, but I can like notice the movement barely talks about socioeconomics whatsoever. It's all about like racial justice, feminism, trans rights. And again, these issues may be extremely important to a lot of people, and they very well should have the means to fight for these rights. And wherever groups of people are disenfranchised, for sure, solutions need to be found. But I think it's not coincidence that 90+% of the rhetoric does not touch on socioeconomics or any genuine policy change that would actually help people. It's just a distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, we do have quite a few people
Okay,
waiting. I
thank you for
appreciate.
having me on.
Yeah. Any final words you want to leave us with?
No, I'm just gonna go take a shower,
Okay. Well,
get rid of this.
I've seen you in chat quite a lot and in the comments, so I'm happy we finally got to speak.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to finally meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for
All
joining.
right, bye now.
Lake, I see you here. You ready? Just give me the thumbs up if you're ready. Great. Lake,
Hiya.
how
Can
are
you hear me
you?
okay? I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, real quick, I just want to address the super chat real quick. Hold on. Oops. So, thank you, Richard, for the €5. Richard is asking, how do I hop on? I will drop a link in the chat. Join the chat, and we will get you on. Leiko, so what's going on?
Well, the usual. So I guess I want to comment on one of the things that I really wish you had pushed back on, and that was and this is such a typical left-wing talking point, is the portrayal of Gaza as the largest open-air prison and the whole apartheid thing. I think the fact that when Norman does it, or somebody like Norman does it, it's Jew washing. It tries to, it gives the people who tell these falsehoods legitimacy that it doesn't deserve, because it's not real. Because like, like one thing that I do when I hear all these things, I go on Google Maps, and there's like a thing where people upload photos of their areas, because they don't have Street View for Gaza, but there are loads of like little pictures. They're like little blue dots, and you can drop on the little blue dots, and there's like 4-star hotels, there's shopping malls, there's banks and hospitals, and this, what open air prison looks like that. I mean, that's one of the things that people just talk stuff that is just blatantly not true, and they're just given a pass. And then the left has, they turn these into rallying cries. I mean, I shouldn't say the left, but the anti-Zionist mob turn these into rallying cries, and people like Finkelstein just Jew-wash these falsehoods, and that kind of bugs me when people don't push back against that, because it's just not real. It's just not reality.
Yeah, so I hear that. I'm a little bit conflicted about how one should describe Gaza, because again, perhaps nuance is the solution, but ultimately, I think it's fair to say that life in Gaza is not easy. I think the unemployment rate is like over 40% or something. Somebody please fact check me on that, but it's astronomically high. Um, the the amount of people there that have PTSD, the fact that they can't leave Gaza easily, that's I think where the open air prison comes from. So I'm entirely okay with providing nuance and showing that, if you're going to say Gaza is like Auschwitz, did Auschwitz have shopping malls, right? So like there's definitely a place and a time to talk about the positive aspects of Gaza, and let's also mention this: most Gazans actually love Gaza. I don't want to say most would remain there if they had a choice, but from my conversations with my Gazan friends, most of them don't even want to leave Gaza. They wish they could travel more freely, but they like being there. So there's many significant differences. I just don't want us to try to paint it like it's all rosy and great. I think that it's entirely legitimate to talk about how difficult the situation in Gaza is, and then talk about who bears responsibility. You're saying that the rhetoric today is just like overly hyperbolic and not even grounded in reality. Is that what
Yeah,
the concern is?
and it's not helpful, and I think Norman and people like that Jew wash these falsehoods, and they give people, they say, well, if Jews say this, then it's okay to say. But it's not okay to say. And I saw somebody in the chat saying, "Oh, well, it's a metaphor." Well, it's maybe it is a metaphor, but it's not one that fits. It's not reality. And I understand that the situation isn't great there and the unemployment isn't great there, but like I went to school in India, and there isn't like an underpass. There isn't like if you're in the South, there isn't a beach that isn't full of homeless people sleeping under tarps, whole families. Everywhere you look, there's people sleeping rough. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like India, for instance. And I know that's whataboutery, but I think there's like an obsession. I call it Zionism, ZDS, Zionism derangement syndrome, and I think it just feeds into that. There's so many other places, and I know it's whataboutery, but there are so many other places that are so much worse, and they're trying to paint this picture of this open air prison, and it's not just Israel. It does it. I mean, there's a blockade from Egypt. The borders with Egypt is closed as well. And but everything lands on the Jews, and it's to fuel this anti-Zionism, and I think it's dangerous. I think I've seen in my I was born. I like to say I was assigned American at birth, but I identify as British. In my country, in the UK, the amount of anti-Semitism is just off the charts right now, and you saw it embedded in these anti-Zionist movements, these pro-Palestine movements. And I don't know if you saw like the videos going around, but they were like parades of cars waving Palestinian flags and with bullhorns shouting, "Kill the Jews, rape their daughters" in the Jewish areas in London. And they got a pass. I mean, they did it took a couple of days of people complaining to the police before anything was really done about it. And there were some during the Israel protests in the most recent war. There were a handful of Zionists that came out and waved Israeli flags, and for like maybe half a dozen people, there needed to be a huge cordon of police, and they had like rocks, big rocks hurled at their heads and things like that. And I think that this rhetoric actually feeds into it blurs into you could say, well, it's anti-Israel, it's anti-Zionism, but the lines between that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are so blurred right now. And this rhetoric that Israel is holding these people hostage in an open air prison just feeds into that. I think it just fans those flames.
Yeah, I agree to a large extent. I'm a little conflicted in certain aspects of that. I'll tell you why. So first of all, we could agree that Palestinians have a right to care more about the situation in Gaza than they do elsewhere, right? Even if you said someplace in India is worse, a Palestinian is going to care more about their people. Now, Palestinians have successfully and effectively built a global movement, a global pro-Palestine movement. Now, there's a strong case to be made that one of the reasons why they've successfully built this movement is because of anti-Semitism, right? People who don't like Jews will gladly join the pro-Palestine movement because it's anti-Israel.
I don't think that's the
trick
reason, but
so
I think that, well, I think the reason is basically that it's kind of the wokeism, and there's sort of scales of oppression of wokeism, and a lot of it has to do with the color of your skin, and I think they see Palestinians
being brown and Jews being white. It just
so therefore less oppressed. I think it fits into. I think there's. I don't think it. I mean, I think there's a strong element of anti-Semitism, a huge element of anti-Semitism, basically. But I think this wokeism has its own canon, and I think a lot of it is to do with that canon.
So I agree that a lot of it comes from wokeism because it falls right into it. But the question is why. Again, you're saying this conflict specifically very plays into it. It's seen as like white European colonizers dominating brown people in the Middle East. This is very much, part of our movement. But doesn't that weaken the case you're making that the lines are blurred between anti-Israel and anti-Semitism if their intention is simply, unless you're saying it's anti-Semitic to be misled about the cause itself, right? You're saying it's anti-Semitic to view Jews as oppressive, for example.
No, it's more that in like when there was a lot of pro-Palestinian demonstrations in this last war, there was so much anti-Semitism embedded in that, and I think it wasn't being called out because it was the lines were so blurred between the anti-Semitism, the anti-Semitic rhetoric that was being said, and the pro-Palestinian rhetoric that was being said, that they just weren't calling it out. The left or the woke. I'm going to say the left because left is center versus far left.
Yeah, you could say the woke. Most people, I think, agree on what that means these days.
So I think that they just gave it they just let it go because it was part of the pro-Palestinian demonstrations. So they just let it go, and that's what I mean, that the lines blur so much because it's so fluid between pro-Palestinian rhetoric and anti-Semitic rhetoric. That's where the lines blur in my mind.
Yeah, so I guess I'm more interested in how those lines, like, where did the anti-Semitic rhetoric even come from? And it seems like a lot of people who joined the pro-Palestine movement might harbor some anti-Semitic sentiment. But what I'll tell you, my concern is, because it's like, let's say you're a diaspora Palestinian and you really want to make the situation here better. And maybe you're very much a moderate about it, two-state solution, like you're all for it, but you want to end the occupation and make the situation in Gaza better, right? Let's say you're diaspora Palestinian.
That's also, as a diaspora Jew, that's also my position, if I'm honest.
Sure. So let's say a Palestinian really works to mobilize people towards this cause, and they're going to mobilize non-Palestinians, right, towards this cause. Often you're going to have those non-Palestinians be accused of anti-Semitism because of the double standard. That's like, why are you focusing on Israel but not Afghanistan? Well, it's because they happen to meet a Palestinian that convinced them to care about the cause. So it's almost like I acknowledge that there's anti-Semitism in the pro-Palestine cause. Some coming from Palestinians, some coming from just Westerners who don't like Jews. Some of them were anti-Semitic going into the movement. Some perhaps became anti-Semitic after joining the movement. It certainly exists within that movement. But I want us to be careful and perhaps we're in agreement on this point, but I want us to be careful with how quickly we are to label certain actions anti-Semitic, because we then are becoming the woke ones by just weaponizing a term to just negate anything we disagree with instead of actually engaging with them. So I think we could acknowledge that there's anti-Semitism as part of this movement, but I don't think we should just hurl it out every time we see a Westerner caring about Palestine, for example, and just accuse him of double standard.
No, that's yeah, and I hear that. I definitely hear that. And there is a certain amount of, well, I don't want to say legitimacy, because I don't. I personally, I'm very pro Zionism, but I can see some of the arguments that at least acknowledge some of the arguments that people have, even if I don't necessarily agree with them. But I guess what I'm saying more is it's not that you could just use anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism completely interchangeably. I think that there are people that have legitimate concerns. I'm not one of them. I think, I believe in a two-state solution personally. And I believe that, is the Palestinians, Gazans I would love to see them succeed, and I would love to see them have a good relationship with Jews. But more than anything, I would love to see them not bomb Jews and send missiles over. But no, I meant more, not that the terms were interchangeable. I meant more that it just, also, I don't think that the anti-Israel sentiment and when that bleeds into anti-Semitism necessarily, I personally don't believe it comes from personal relationships with Palestinians. I think it's acceptance in social circles, especially in America, that again, it's part of this wokeism, it's part of this woke canon. And then to be part of the crowd, to be accepted. And I know that from personal experience, because I used to be very, very left, and I used to hang out on all the progressive live chats on YouTube, like Sam Cedar and David Packman and all that. And then I started to have issues with the amount of anti-Israel rhetoric and a lot of the anti-feminists. And actually, I'm gonna say something about that. So, as far as the woke feminism thing, that's like a personal bugbear of mine, because I don't see what the woke call feminism, which is liberal feminism, as being even remotely what feminism is about. But yeah, that's just, sorry, it's just an aside.
Yeah, we can maybe go deeper into that on a later episode. I'd be happy to hear you.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Your thoughts on it.
Yeah, sorry, but I guess I think that it's not based on personal relationships with Palestinians or necessarily even hearing the Palestinian narrative. I think it's more to do with acceptance in social circles, especially in America. And that's what I mean. It becomes part of this woke canon. We believe this because it's just how things have been done. And it reminds me, I saw this this program on television where they brought people to meet the people that bullied them when they were children. It'd be like decades later. And I remember one episode where the chap who was bullied asked the fellow who had bullied him, "Why did you do it?" And they said, "Well, or he said, well, you know what? I don't know why. It was just the done thing. We got bored and we said, what should we do? Let's go beat up on Mike. It was just what we did. It was just,
Right.
And I think that's part of where the anti-Israel stuff comes from. It's just the part of your social circle is like, let's just protest against Israel, because that's just what's done.
Yeah.
It's just a done thing in those circles.
I agree. And I'll go even further. I think a lot of the anti-Semitism we see there, it's not explicit. Like, people who are engaging in it don't acknowledge that they don't know that what they're doing is either a trope or some, engaging in some form of anti-Semitism. Because often a lot of anti-Semitism is in stories. It's ideas about people. It's not just saying I don't like Jews. It's thinking that Jews are powerful or that they control the world, right? It's like having, right? So I think these sentiments probably grow that once you join the social justice movement. So you don't recognize that you're harboring any negative sentiment towards Jews, but it might be a natural process at being part of these movements. Again, I'm not saying if to be woke is to be anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form. But it seems like there's a prevalence, and a lot of these stories, because they come in the form of stories about, you know, Jews controlling the world, or Jews being greedy, certain manipulation, control over media, right? So I see how it, and I'd go one step further and say that anybody who's pro-Palestine needs to strongly condemn anti-Semitism when they see it in the pro-Palestine movement, because it delegitimizes the movement entirely.
Yeah, and they should, but they don't. That's
Yeah.
my issue, is that they
No, I
don't.
hear you.
Anyway, I
Yep.
know
So
that you got other people, so I'll
yeah,
let you
yeah.
get on. Thanks for
Thank
hearing
you
me
so.
out.
Thanks, Lake. It was great speaking to you. Great. One more super chat. Yeah. So just on that note, if anybody also, I might be making a mistake, because when I speak about wokeness, I speak about it as if it's negative, because I personally am opposed to the set of beliefs that woke people generally have. But I do want to, maybe I am antagonizing a certain portion of our viewers. And I just want to say that if you're watching this and you're woke, or you're woke in the way we're describing it, nothing personal. I'm happy you're here. I'd be happy to engage and debate this topic, but I'm going to be honest in my opposition to it. Plutus for you, super chat. Thanks for the $5. The woke represents 40% of the Dems, while MAGAs represent 85% of the GOP. There is no parallel. Twitter volume is not representative, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if those numbers are correct, but I mean, it's pretty dismal picture regardless. I'm not into comparing who's worse. I said, quote, both parties are trash. Do I have a preference one over the other? Yeah, but just barely. Like garbage and a little worse garbage, you know. Josh, I see you're here, but it says device is not connected. So Josh, you need to connect your phone. In the meantime, I'm going to bring Yosef on. Yosef, how are you? Yosef, can you hear me? Okay, I'm not. So Yosef, I don't know what's going on with you. Let's see. I know we missed a lot of chats. You know, maybe we should start bringing on like a moderator to help bring on the chats, because the more I pay attention to the speaker, which is the most important, the less I'm following. Oh, Josh, yeah, I see you're connected. Yeah, real quick, Josh, I'll bring you on. Let me just respond. Hold on. I see a few comments on wokeness. Josh, you're coming on in woke. You're woke. Imagine self-identifying as woke. Haha. Yeah. That's. I still haven't figured out the best way to have this conversation. So the term woke was actually created by black activists. Stay woke. It was meant to be stay aware of social justice issues, which is something that most people should be able to agree with, right? Like, social justice on its own is not wokeness. The civil rights movement, women's suffrage, right, ending slavery, none of these are woke. These are all social justice. Wokeness is a new brand of social justice that is vastly different in their approach to classical social justice. The challenge is that people who are today considered woke, they don't self-identify. Generally speaking, they don't have a name for this new type of left-wing social justice movement. So the people who named it are opponents to it, and you've seen people describe it in different ways. For example, Jordan Peterson would refer to it as the postmodern neo-Marxists. Sam Harris calls it, I don't know, he's referred to it like the left-wing orthodoxy, something like that, right? Different people have, some people call it the intersectional left, right? So there's like, I've heard at least a dozen different names throughout the years, but all of these are names given by opponents to wokeness. So it's unfortunate, because generally you would want to call a movement as they self-identify, but there hasn't been any self-identification, so they're literally being called what their opponents have called them. If somebody has a better way on how to describe this without potentially being inflammatory, then I'd prefer that, because obviously having good conversations is what we're about. But right now, most people have agreed that woke is going to describe the social justice orthodoxy. Most people know what they're referring to. It's unfortunate because that term was actually appropriated from Black people who meant something different when they said it. So it's not the best term, but it is agreed upon. So it is what it is until we have a better way. Zohar, you're asking what exactly I oppose in wokeness, I'm assuming. Yeah, I'll get to that, but first we're going to bring Josh on. Josh, you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Yeah, was that a thumbs up? Yeah, cool. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Adar, long-time fan, first time on the stream.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One, with Sulha, I really admire the project. I want to know, do you feel closer every time you talk to someone, or every time you have this, that you're closer to a solution or closer to something? Or does it feel just as far away as the beginning, or farther?
I wouldn't say it's a good question, and I'm happy you finally joined us for one of these streams. I don't feel after every conversation that we're somehow closer, not in a tangible way. My approach to activism, and I very much view this as necessary if you don't want your activism to make you miserable or sick. It's to make your activism about the journey more so than the destination. And I recognize that this is actually a very privileged statement, because when I'm generally speaking about like injustices, it's not my own injustice, it's not my own rights. I could never speak out against an injustice my whole entire life, and I'll live a pretty good life. So it's much easier for me to say I'm more tied to the process than the destination, because people who are affected by certain issues, for them, all they care about the destination, and the journey is a means to get to that destination. I recognize that, but we need to be fully aware that we don't know what result our actions are going to have, right? Let's take an activism that I can connect with. There are people who are fighting anti-Semitism. They could dedicate their entire life fighting anti-Semitism. They could get very hurt every time they see anti-Semitism somewhere on social media, take it personally. And even if they're successful in their activism and reduce anti-Semitism by 90%, there's still going to be enough anti-Semitism around that can potentially make them miserable because they're consuming it all day long, right? So if we get too tied in to the end result, you're going to be miserable. You're going to live a miserable life. So even if you're a Palestinian who needs to wait at a checkpoint every day, or if you're somebody more privileged who's sitting comfortably in the gallery like myself, we don't know the result of our actions, but we could assume two things. One, if we are part of a process that is engaging in positivity, ultimately that will contribute to a positive outcome. So we're having conversations on a weekly basis. We know we're inspiring others to have conversations. This has a ripple effect, one to change a few to change many, many to change the world. So I genuinely believe that myself and this channel, we are contributing to long-term change. We are doing our small role in contributing to a positive outcome. Will our outcome be measurable? Probably not. But that brings me to my second point. So we know that positivity does have a positive ripple effect. But the second thing is, if you live a life filled with meaning, and that meaning is something positive, and that meaning is something greater than yourself, and that also is going to improve the quality of your life. So if you are able to fight for a cause you believe in, and do it in a way where you're not getting too tied to the end results, then I think not only are you doing good for the world, but you're doing good for yourself as an individual. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I just thought of that question because when you had Rafi, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Gassel, on, who had the Federation plan, he said, you can't really form a movement if there's not a shared vision. Otherwise, it's just talking without no purpose. So I think you need both. He wouldn't have had his platform without you. So that's why I've been playing with kind of those two thoughts.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And you could speak more to that. My second question, though, because I know there's a lot of people waiting, was how do we get Israelis more, or the peace higher on the Israeli political agenda? You know, I'm in California, so I care about it a lot because that's what I face on a college campus. I don't care about rent prices. That's how, sorry, my dog, for Israelis. So how do we get it higher on or should we get it higher on the Israeli political agenda?
You're saying you're saying how do we get Israel Palestine to get higher on the
How do we get a will for peace among people if there isn't already? I sense that right now there's not a high will for it to make an effort for it.
Yeah. So it's funny because those are proponents of violent resistance would make the case that this is exactly why violent resistance is good, because it gets Israelis to care about the conflict. If Israelis are comfortable, obviously they're not going to care. So let's be violent. Let's make it bad for them as well, and get them to care. This is how violent resistance is justified. This is how BDS is justified. This is how any action against the state of Israel is justified. It's to make Israelis care more. My personal belief is that things like terror, or just making Israeli people feel desperate, is that it's going to make them care, but it's also going to radicalize them and not make them more empathetic to the Palestinian struggle. So I do think that some amount of pressure on Israel could be beneficial, but I think we need to be careful that we don't make Israelis feel like they're in danger, that their back is up against the wall, because that's not going to produce positive results. The way I like to do that is through speaking to Israelis, right? So here we do this in English because it's the common language between Israelis and Palestinians, or the most common language, unfortunately. But I have many conversations with Israelis about, the importance of this topic, and that our security, our freedom doesn't need to come at the expense of another people, and we need to do more about it. I also very much, this is why I'm anti-normalization, or I'm pro-normalization by and large, is because if Israelis have more Palestinian friends, then they're going to start to care about them. Right now, Israelis don't care about Palestinians because they don't know them. They just view them as, their enemy. It's like, I don't, most Israelis are under, their thought is, I don't hate Palestinians. It's just, they want to kill me, so I need to protect myself against them. That's it. The second Israelis start to have friends with Palestinians, start to learn from them who they are, what their struggle is, then that very much has the ability to change Israelis and how they perceive the conflict and how much they prioritize it. And I view this as wholly effective. And just the pushback that we get from, we're just talking about wokeness, the pushback from the more woke crew would be like, oh, you're telling the oppressed to speak to the colonizer and convince the colonizer to love them. That's just a ridiculous approach. That's the pushback. But there's a few false assumptions in taking that approach. I think very much so. The more I think Israelis and Palestinians need to build a coalition and work together towards lasting change on the land.
Beautifully said. Thanks. That's all I got.
Cool, Josh. Thanks so much for joining. And yeah, hop back on anytime. Talk soon. Cool. Let's see what else we got. So somebody is saying Adar, Silver 42 goes, Adar, just do the Gotti Taub switch. You still young, learn from others' mistakes. I'm not sure what that switch is. You could send a link, I'll read it. Mossad asks, Sulha, why do you assume your contribution is positive? That's a good question. I get messages on a weekly basis of people who tell me that they have been impacted positively from this content. Israelis who have told me that it changed the way they view the other. They began to care about the Palestinian cause. I've gotten messages from Palestinians that they told me they grew up thinking Zionists were like Nazis, and now they see that Zionists are people too. So this channel very much is part of the humanization process, and that is ultimately positive. I've yet to get an email saying, and look, now I'm going to get an email saying this because the haters are going to use this against me, but I've yet to get an email saying that this channel has radicalized somebody, that this channel's made somebody more hateful. So unless you view like people being more understanding of the other side as negative, and you might, Mossad, I know you view the world very differently than myself. If you view that as negative, then you might think that we're having a negative contribution. But it seems like this content generally gives people a better understanding and a more open mind and a deeper understanding and respect for the other side. I think that's positive. Not only do I think it's positive, that's one of the few things that I strongly believe in. I'm not extremely ideologically driven, but the idea that humanizing the other is beneficial for humanity, that's a hill I would die on. Let's see. Mossad, you block this. You know what's funny, Mossad? Whenever you come on for a conversation, you're way nicer, and then in chat, you're just pretty much a dick. I block not people for their views. I block people because they have an inability to engage respectfully. I know you're still butthurt that I blocked your butt buddy Ophir. I know that's what you're still complaining about. He was literally a nasty human being who would just constantly engage in hate. He would send me emails out of the blue, personally attacking me. I have every right to block him. If I don't like your views and you make an argument, we're going to speak about that. Honestly, I shouldn't even address this, because anybody saying that I just block people who disagree with me, no one really believes that. It's not a genuine claim. I should stop taking it seriously. I should recognize that you're just a troll. Like, I'll engage with anybody who's going to engage in good faith. So let's see. Thoughts on Afghanistan. Jake asks, what are my thoughts on Afghanistan? Mossad says, bye. Where are you going? Did I offend you? Oh man. Look, if you don't, I often reflect on like how we conduct these conversations. Hold on, my cat's being annoying. Pete, shut up. And one thing I question is like, am I too mean on people in the chat who are acting a certain way? And I've acknowledged that I do it partially for entertainment value, but like if you really don't like getting called out in the chat, just don't be hateful. Like it's so simple. And if it's hard for you to not be hateful, well then seek help. It's not hard to be a loving human being. You should try it. So, anyways. Oh, Iran says that he's mad that I removed his comment. I barely remove comments, only if they're very hateful. So yeah, it was hateful. It definitely wasn't making a good argument, that's for sure. Yeah. Yep. Gerfot. So I don't even want to say some right wingers, but you go some right wingers. But in general, some people just have hard time with political pluralism. Yeah, yeah. Those people hate what we're doing because they're triggered by a lot of what is said or a lot of the guests we have. Okay, let's see if we let's talk about Afghanistan real quick. I would like to see the United States stop nation building in countries all around the world. As we see 20 years and we accomplish close to nothing. I think that if we left now or if we left in 20 years from now, the same thing would happen. I mean, 20 years is a lot, though. The global landscape changes. Who knows if the Taliban would still be around? But if it took us 20 years to do close to nothing, then what really is the end game? And if the end game is staying there forever, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's America's role to stay in a country forever. That being said, it seems like there were a lot of mistakes in how the withdrawal happened, right? There were like government personnel. There were members of like people that Afghanis that helped the U.S. Army that are stuck there. Their lives are in danger. So it seems like they definitely messed up big time in how the withdrawal happened. Whether it could have been done in any way that wouldn't have allowed the Taliban to fall to Afghanistan, I'm not sure. Probably not. And honestly, my heart breaks because it's pretty horrific. I could imagine it's pretty horrific living under the Taliban, especially if you're a woman. So it's very sad to see, and yet I do understand the idea behind the withdrawal. You could say I'm a little on the fence about this. I would have liked to see if there was a way to do it better. It seems like we botched the withdrawal, but I don't think that it's America's job to just occupy other countries for eternity. Let's see. Okay, so the Mossad goes, the Juminati, try us the Juminati, see if we block opposition like Adar does. So the Juminati, I'll shout it out. It's a channel that the Mossad opened where him and another person talk about some issues. I've watched a little bit. I'll tell you this. You come here every single chat and plug Juminati. I let it happen. You say a whole bunch of nonsense, I let it happen. But here's what's going to happen. If you want to be able to plug your channel, then you're going to need to act in good faith and respect. If not, then you're just going to be the next one blocked. Like, life's too short and too precious to put up with people who have obvious personality disorders, right? I'd rather surround myself with an abundance of different perspectives, but all people who know how to engage respectfully. And I sympathize with people who don't know how to engage respectfully. They do have something wrong, internally, but we're just not going to put up with it. So up to you. Cool. Let's see anything else. So Jake goes, I just hope the Taliban taking over Afghanistan doesn't affect Israel, and I hope they don't attack Israel. I don't think it will, to be honest. I mean, there might be some like greater geopolitical consequences, but the idea of the Taliban attacking Israel is very low likelihood of that. Do more people want to hop on? Starhopper's saying that more people want to hop on. Okay. Yeah, Marvin Vargas goes, Afghanistan was great for the war machine. Yeah, that's another point. That think about how much money America spent. You know how many the Taliban has never been better armed than now. They have all the American weapons that that America left there that they gave the Afghan army. There's also a video showing a bunch of Afghani military personnel with their military vehicles driving to Iran. So Iran is better equipped now. The Taliban's better equipped. Like that's their literally their contribution. So um, P-Ball, you want to come on a live stream? Sure. Let's drop the link. Dropped it. Mossad, why don't you come on a live stream instead of being angry in the chat? People, I dropped a link. So David, thanks for the question. David asks, what is your opinion on double standards at the UN and how is it labeled anti-Semitism? I'm by no means an expert on the UN. There seems to be a clear double standard. I've heard people make the case that it's legitimate. Again, I'm not an expert. I'll tell you this, I do think that Israel gets a disproportionate amount of attention by activists around the world. I think there's a case to be made that a lot of that disproportionate attention could be fueled by anti-Semitism. That being said, I think we need to be cautious when using the label anti-Semitism. I think we're overly using it and it's not helping us educate people about anti-Semitism. Cool. We have a bunch of more people. I hope that answers your question. So we'll bring Yosef on first. Yosef, what's up?
Good. Can you hear me this time?
Yeah, how are you?
Great. So I wanted to talk about, when you talk about anti-Semitism, most people don't even understand the concept. So first it has to be defined, and Zionism as well. As far as I know, Zionism is a statement in the Bible written 2,600 years ago. It started on the rivers of Babylon. So when people try to say Zionism is something that started in the 19th century and anti-Zionism is not anti-Judaism, that's a lie. Anti-Zionism is anti-Judaism, period. Zionism is saying, I am a Jew, ethnically a Jew, from Zion. That's it.
Yeah,
If
so
someone was a Native American and they said, I am Cherokee, does that make them racist? Does that make them a colonialist? If they were exiled for 2,000 years and they came back and said, I'm a Cherokee, are they a colonialist? Or they are native returning to their land?
I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So for example,
it's not.
Well, I'll explain why I think it is. If a Cherokee were to return, let's say, for example,
in 2,000 years from now.
Hold on. Let's even do a smaller time frame and see even on a smaller time frame it doesn't work. Let's say that when the first Europeans came to America, they decided to bring back a bunch of Native Americans to England. Those Native Americans ended up having their own community there, having some Native American identity. And they decided
prosecuted, murdered, pogromed, raped, pillaged for that whole period of time.
Right. And then they were to return to, maybe they come from New Jersey, okay? And they were to say, this land, we are going to make it Cherokee land, and we're going to have special rights and privileges than any other people here. if you were
Zionism doesn't say that.
well,
You just made that up. You just made that up.
No,
No, you just made that up. Yeah, admit that you just made that up.
Yosef.
Admit that you just made that up.
Yosef.
Admit that you just made that up. There's nothing to discuss.
If you let
just
me
made
respond,
that up. You lie.
Yosef,
You blatantly lie online.
Yosef, are you going to let me speak, or do you
I
just
am.
want
If you're going to speak the truth, and I'm not going to let you lie. No.
Okay. Zionism in practice gives special privilege to Jews over other people.
Nonsense.
This is not okay. Okay.
Prove it.
Okay. Can a Palestinian move to Israel? Can they make Aliyah? No, only Jews can.
Excuse me. There is no such thing, Palestinian. I'm Palestinian. I'm from Israel 400 years.
Yosef.
I'm Palestinian.
Fine.
Who's Palestinian?
Yosef.
Who's Palestinian?
Yosef, can a European move? Can a Christian make Aliyah?
Yes, you could apply for citizenship in Israel. Yes.
Wait. Can they make Aliyah the same way a Jew can? Can they just
anyone
move
could apply for citizenship?
No. You see, you accuse me of lying,
the law.
and hold on. But Jews have preference to move to Israel. Am I lying? You accuse me of lying 10 times. You didn't even let me speak.
Also, Germans have a preference to move to Germany.
Hold on.
And also, New Zealanders have a preference to move to New Zealand.
Yosef, wait. So you could acknowledge that Zionism, as it's implemented, gives a preference to Jews. Can you agree with that?
No. You have to make the definition exactly what it is. So what you're doing is trying to make a bold statement, which does not reflect the reality or the truth.
Hold on. How is it not truthful? Zionism prefers Jews over other people.
Zionism, the movement of Zionism came in the 18th century, bought land legally, established a state legally with the Declaration of the United Nations, and every other land after that was gained in a defensive, legal, rightful, humane war.
These are
that
talking
is
points. I asked you a
justified
question.
all the way.
I asked you a
the
question.
Muslims opened a war. They lost. They need to suffer the consequences of losing a genocidal war against the Jews they started with Muhammad.
Yosef.
Did you hear what I said? Don't say my name. Respond to what I said.
All right, I took Yosef off because he's obviously unhinged. I'm pretty sure that's the guy, Gigi Green, who I kicked out. I remember his name's Yosef. He sent me an email one time. You see, that's a perfect example. If Yosef would engage in good faith, as you saw, he was unhinged, accused me of lying 10 times. He could have made all the same points and done it in a way that we still would have been having this conversation. It has nothing to do with views. It has something to do with a certain personality type that I just don't want to engage with in life, because there's a lot of people in this world. I'm going to choose the cool cats. What's up, Richard?
Hello.
What's up?
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yeah. How are you, Richard? Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Let me begin. I live in Berlin. I live in Germany since 5 years, and here in Germany, 70% of Germans have a bad opinion about Israel. I lived before in France because I'm a Frenchman. I wasn't born there either, but I lived there a long time, and it must be about the same proportion. What's peculiar about Germany, and that is another subject, that's another aspect I wouldn't like to talk about now, is that there is a cult for the dead Jews. Many people love dead Jews, but the Jews.
What do people love?
Dead Jews.
People love dead Jews.
Yes, Holocaust victims.
Okay,
there are all sorts of homages, museums, everything for dead Jews, TV shows, everything possible. But the Jews who are alive are a pain in the neck. And I have, with time, because I'm a pretty old guy. With time, I have, and it's a long time. I have been doing this sort of exchanges with anti-Zionists and anti-Semites, because I myself am a Zionist, Zionist. And I have a test to see who is an anti-Zionist and who is an anti-Semite. And it's a very easy test. All these anti-Zionists have some advice to give to Israel. Stop doing this, stop doing that, do this instead, do that. And I asked them, after they have given their advice to Israel, what Israel should do, what Israel's policy should be, I asked them, and well, you're not perfect. You're not. Maybe you could be wrong, and Israel could take your advice, and that could turn out badly. In that case, would you agree that your country will be a haven for Jewish refugees from Israel who are fleeing the persecution of the Palestinians, the Muslims, who you want? And they mostly remain silent. They don't say yes. They don't say yes. No one has said yes. We would harbor those Jews who are persecuted in Israel and who lost their land. We would harbor them here. Well, that's just a test, and
no, I like that. Look, what you're trying to do is you're trying to differentiate between those who are opposed to Israel policy and those who are opposed to Israel's existence, and I think that's an important distinction to make. Yeah, no, I like it. I don't know if I would use that exact framework, but I think it's a useful one.
It's a test. It has worked for me, and it helps make things clear. But I wanted to say something about Norman and about Finkelstein, because I've read many of his books. I have I've been following for 30 years, and I was really shocked and depressed by his intervention in your streaming, because Holocaust and concentration camp comparisons are just made to hurt Jews, to hurt Israelis. It's an offense. It's like saying you're a son of a gun. It's just an insult. Because there are so many other examples: French in Algeria, Dutch in Indonesia, the Russians in Chechnya. There are so many cruel, oppressive armies, colonizers. No. Excuse me.
No problem. Yeah, I'll put. You want to?
Oh, excuse me.
Okay. Meanwhile, I guess that's one of the downsides of a landline, huh?
I hope his coffee is doing better. But he was just insulting and offending. And when he said, "Well, I don't want to talk to Israel. I'm not talking to Israelis," that was really extreme. And it is also as much extreme to say, "Well, I won't talk to white Southerners in the U.S." You have to talk to everybody when you are a humanist. And I think he became a militant. He became extreme, and he's no longer thinking. The same thing happened to Ilan Pappé, who was a good historian, but he's now a militant. And I can respect him as a militant, but I don't respect him anymore as a historian. I don't think he's impartial. And yes, I am for I am for the return of Palestinian refugees. I would like to explain you that another time by writing in private, in public, however you want. I think it is in Israel's interest to comply with Resolution 194. And there is a way to do that. I don't think the result will be peace because it's about because I think the Palestinian conflict is a religious problem. It's about jihad. They cannot accept the existence of the state of Israel for religious reasons, and that is something that can't be changed. But if Israel now accepted the right of return, Israel was right not to accept it in 1949 because the situation was different. But if Israel accepts that right of return, now it would take away from the Palestinian narrative, it would take away 90% of the Palestinian narrative.
So you think right of return should be implemented, and so I'm not ideal.
By stages. First, those who were born in Palestine.
Oh, okay. So starting people born here.
Yes, because you don't open your gates. No country does that. You don't open your gates to an indefinite flow of people, and there is not an indefinite flow of people who want to pour in. People don't move like that. I have migrated many times in my life. It's not so easy to migrate.
Right.
And yes, because you were talking about the right of return of the Jews, the right of return for the Jews ain't so hot either. It would be very difficult for me to come to Israel. You get one year help for the Aliyah. When you make Aliyah, you get financial help for 1 year, and then you are on your own. And the living standard, the cost of living in Israel is much higher than in Germany and than in Berlin. That's why we have so many Israelis here also. So for me, it would be a social downfall to make Aliyah. I wouldn't think in extreme poverty, but it would be a social downfall. It would be something very hard to take. So they're not giving everything. But I'm coming back to this. What would be the advantage? First, it would be those who were born in Palestine. So they have to prove that they have been born in Palestine.
So let me just ask you something real quick. I think what you're proposing, I mean, to me, makes a lot of sense. And it's not like a radical position because it doesn't create a demographic concern, which I think is Israelis' like main concern when it comes to something like right of return. But if it's only allowing in people born here, I don't think that is going to change the Palestinian cause much, because it's only letting in a very small portion of the people who are considered to be Palestinian refugees, right? Like 90-somewhat%, which still won't be able to return.
But I don't say no. I say you begin by the beginning. The first who have right are those who are born in Palestine, and those who are born in Palestine. Those who were born in Palestine have to prove that to Israeli authorities. So they have to go to Israeli authorities and ask for the right of return or compensation. I'm also for compensation. But when you get right of return, when you get compensation, you recognize the legitimacy of the part that gives you a right to return and gives you a right of compensation. But the other advantage is that you take the PLO, the PA, Hamas, and everybody, UNRWA, and all those guys out of the loop. It's a relationship between each Palestinian or each Palestinian family and the Israeli state, where they will put their demands, and then it will be seen where they want to live, what are their rights, what are the what will be their social security, everything, case by case, person by person, and they will have to deal with Israel. With Israeli, it can be Arab Israelis, but they will have to deal with the state of Israel. And then for those who want citizenship, it will be like, for instance, in Holland, in France, here in Germany, if you want to immigrate to Germany, you have to learn German. You have to learn German, but you have to learn about German institutions, German laws, German society, a little of German history. That's every country. Israel won't do anything. Israel won't do anything that any other country doesn't do when it takes in migration for any reason. So
that sounds like a sensible plan.
Israel won't be doing anything different than the Netherlands or France or Germany or the United States, where you have to also, to become a citizen, swear your allegiance to the state and to the country. So I think that acceptance of the resolution 194, because the resolution 194 has two sides, has the right of return and compensation for those who are willing to live in peace with their neighbors. And that is something, that part of the same sentence in that resolution, that is the paragraph 11, is always forgotten. Are you willing? And I have done that in many debates on Twitter. Yes, you want to come back, but are you willing to live in peace with your eventual neighbors?
Right.
And then it's no. And then the answer is always no. So, and it would be because everybody has said it, we are losing the PR war. The Zionist side is losing the PR war. We're not. It's a difficult moment, and I know that in Israel, because Israeli politics is so complicated and so difficult, such an idea will never pass. But Israel, I think it would be a great step forward, the acceptance of Resolution 194 for Israel. And about these debates about binational, Israel is a binational state. When you got 20% Arabs, that is binational. How many Arabs do you need to have to be binational? Bolivia is a plurinational state. That's not a problem.
Richard, I don't want to cut you short, but I do want to let some other people on.
I would like that someday, with more time, or even privately, or even in the written way, we could discuss about these ideas. And I thank you very much to have let me participate.
Yeah, no, it was great having you on. You emailed me just like 20 minutes ago, right?
Yes.
Is that you? Okay, I got that. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
I'm a great fan of you, and I'm a great fan of Corey Gill, who you had in Canadian.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about Corey Gill because, excuse me, I wanted to say something very quickly because I don't hear that it's not only Corey Gill's programs are not only interesting by what people say, but the looks of people, the stores, the cars, the streets. You see, there is a life. You see, there is some welfare in that society. That's not. It's not. And it's very interesting to see that because I grew up in Venezuela, and that's a country that's really doing very bad. So I can make the comparison with a country that is in hell and that's living a very difficult situation, and Palestine. I don't deny they have problems, but we can find a way. And well, thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Keep on the good work.
Great having you. So we have a few people waiting. I just want to take a super chat real quick from Shai. Shai Levy goes, Adar, this kind of stuff happens to me all the time with my family. What, in your opinion, should I do when someone act like this in a fanatic way? So you're referring to Yosef, our little unhinged friend, coming on. So look, I guess it depends on if their views are extreme or if they are actually like unhinged. Like that person wasn't 100%. Let's be honest. Like you could tell with just how they interacted, there was something else going on there. It wasn't just fanatic views. I would tell you that those are not the people you should try to convince. If you have a family member, and again, I want to be sensitive with like mental health terms and whatnot. So I'm just going to use the term unhinged to describe people who act in a way that is counter to being like doing well in social situations. Okay. And if somebody can give me better language how to have this conversation, please let me know. But if you have someone that's unhinged like that in your family, because you're your family member, I'd say give them love, you know. Those who are hardest to love are the ones who need it the most. If it's somebody who acts like that and you don't owe them any, they're not your family, then I'd say it's really up to you if you want to help them in life or not. Like everybody in the world can benefit from having a positive encounter with somebody else. So even though the most difficult, most problematic people, you can help them by having a positive encounter with them. The question just is, are you willing to take that emotional or psychological toll it takes? Because when interacting with these people does take some kind of a toll on you. So engage with these people, you know, to your own limit, to whatever you feel like you could do and remain healthy. If you're talking about fanatic, just in terms of views, like there are no Palestinians, I'm Palestinian. I've had success having these conversations. I guess it depends who you're talking to, but I try to appeal to something that they can connect with, the humanist in them. If they're super religious, I try to find something perhaps in the Torah that can appeal to their humanity. But I've found that even most extreme people can acknowledge two things. One, that Palestinians are in a difficult place. Okay, Palestinians are struggling, and we've contributed to that suffering to one extent or another. To what extent, you're not going to find a consensus with somebody who's ideologically different than you, but most people, no matter how fanatic they are, can acknowledge those two things, at least in my experience. So again, if they're radical in terms of views, I think there is a way to reach them. Try to speak to them without using trigger terms. Don't say occupation, don't say Palestine, don't say all these words that make them perceive you as a fanatic. Use terms that they can hear. I wouldn't say occupation. I'll say our military in the West Bank, or even you could say our military presence in Judea and Samaria causes immense harm to the Palestinians, and there's a lot more we can do. There's a lot we can do to reduce the harm being caused. Instead of saying our occupation of Palestine is brutal, right? They're not going to listen. So it's about using the language that person will hear. If they truly are fanatic in terms of unhinged and have some kind of a personality issue, then again, just don't have a debate or conversation with them. Just give them love. That's what they need. I hope that kind of answers your question. Okay, let's see what we got. We're going to bring we'll do a few more. Yeah, so Mossad, you're gonna get the ban. You contribute nothing of value. The only thing you could say is call people lefty, a form of getting rid of a troll. You're saying is authoritarianism. Like your contribution is absolutely meaningless. So good luck in life. Bye. I think Starhopper is going to be the person that we are the most tolerant to. Starhopper is already like a part of our community. Also, Starhopper is not just, honestly, Starhopper with all the nasty things they've said, they're not nearly as hateful as some of these other people. So we're just gonna stop putting up with trolls. Cool. K-Smear, we're bringing you on, okay?
Absolutely.
Hey.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, welcome.
Hey, nice talking to you.
Yeah,
I think the guy that was unhinged. I understand where he's coming from, especially if he still lives in the region and has to experience it. For disclosure, I was in Israel from 90 to about 2000, so I have personal experiences from the peace process, Tel Aviv, all of that. And I think this is something that I try to engage with people on, the issue with the word Palestinian. It's hard to explain because there's very few analogs in the world. The closest thing I tried to do was to say, well, how would you feel if a group of tiki torch marching individuals that chant some awful things in Charlottesville, if they suddenly, became a large faction and they said, we're American, and you, Casimir, that arrived from the Levant, you're not American. So just relax. We're American now. And when you say the word American, you only mean us, the guys that are from England and Germany. And the guy who's from Israel and Russia, you're not American. I would be against that, even if they had a legitimate narrative of suffering. So there's some unfairness there. But at the same time, the year is 2020, so that's an old story already. When you say Palestinian, people mean only primarily one group, Arab Palestinians from the Levant. So I understand the frustration. I think there are more important battles to fight that are still open, like Judea and Samaria. You understand where I'm going.
You're talking about specifically the language we decide to use. Like, you understand why referring to Levantine Arabs as Palestinian is offensive to many pro-Israel supporters?
No, yeah, that's what I implied. But there's other. So the narrative of the previous century has been a sort of conquest of language by political groups, and a lot of language got changed. And so people who are there's some people who are more conservative minded, or maybe I would like to revert some words back to their historical meaning so that I can describe things accurately. But I don't have that privilege because it's already a done deal in many cases. In some cases, it's not.
Right.
So like locations on the map, they have original names. So in a conversation, I would use them. But that's a moot point.
Right. I mean, but I get what you're saying. I fully agree with what you're saying on language, but we need to understand that as much offense as pro-Israel people get from hearing someone be referred to as Palestinian, that offense doesn't even come close to how a Palestinian feels when you tell them that they're not a real people, right? So,
right, but
the Palestinian people exist regardless of when their national movement began, regardless of how they came to be known as the Palestinian people. we could talk about that, but that doesn't make them any less real a group of people, and we just need to acknowledge that Palestinian people
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of tragedy where they chose, or the name was chosen for them by their leaders, and there's a whole backstory involving Russia there as well, potentially. But it's a fighting name, and so it created a sort of a conflict based on, you can't just name yourself after a confederation and expect all past members of that confederation to be perfectly fine with it. But I want to speak about something else. There's a couple of other things that I don't know if you're covering. There is an issue of trust whenever you speak to anyone who is positive. So I spoke with some Palestinians on your Discord, wonderful place, and they say wonderful things. Especially there was an actual person that believes they're aligned with the Hamas, like clearly an organization that we know has a very violent past and violent present, and yet they promise good things. But if you're an American, a European, you see those words as, oh, this is so great, we can come together around the cause. But if you lived in the Middle East enough, and you know the markets, you know how the shuk works, you know how people talk to each other, you understand that you can't know what the person actually intends to achieve. He might be just opening the door like in the Trojan horse story. He's constructing this perfect horse for you to accept as a gift because that's exactly what you want. You want to coexist. You don't know whether he wants that. The only way for you to test is to live together in some limited capacity for maybe even longer than a decade. And only through actions, when they have an opportunity to do something nasty and they don't, then you build trust. But there's a lot of good actors on this channel, on your channel, and in other channels that engage in this idea of a federation, of even a one-state solution at some remote point. It's all possible. A few decades of proper education, a few decades of disconnect from the violence, everything is possible. But in the Middle East, the history of the Middle East is written by atrocities, backstabbing, and minorities getting obliterated if they trust the other side and don't defend themselves with weapons. There's many of them that we should be naming, actually. When people talk, if anyone has any sainthood narrative towards the Levant, just ask them about Egyptian Coptic Christians. Ask them about the Baha'i that found refuge in Israel. Ask them about what the Alawites in Syria think about their chances, or the Hashemites in Jordan, which are the ruling classes, or the Druze, why the Druze are so loyal to whichever local minority leader that's in charge. They all have a history of engaging in it and defending against violence in the region. So when you have this historical view, words mean less than nothing. So I don't know how we can progress, how I can get someone's trust. If we first of all have all of this shared trauma, like I don't discount the trauma of the Palestinians that live in Gaza and have missiles from both sides falling on them. That's not something to discount. But then if you lived in Tel Aviv in the 90s and you used the number 5 bus through Dizenhof a few times, you knew what reaction you would have to a person that you kind of believed to be Arabic entering the bus with a backpack. You would have, even if you didn't have a terrorist act happen to you personally, you would know that it's a possibility, and this would be part of your existence. So I think that this is the core issue, and the issue of trust is not something that words can easily solve. Meetings like the ones you plan, probably more so.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, That's food for thought. I want to think more on what you said. It's an interesting perspective. I haven't really thought of it like that. And look, I'm happy you had a positive experience in the Discord. It took a lot of time and a lot of challenges to build a positive community talking about this, talking about such a contentious topic. So I'm happy you enjoyed it, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Any last thoughts? We're going to keep it short because I want to end the live stream, and we have one more person waiting.
I think it's just about your channel. I think it's very good that you are bringing those big names, even people that that I have very negative feelings towards. It's good that they show up and they have an opportunity to say their piece. And actually, I don't mind if they don't tone it down and show their true face, because you can examine them in contrast. You can see, how does Allmert behave? How does he talk about his efforts compared to how does Norman behaves and talks about his efforts? And if this is the contrast they want to present, they're your guests.
Yeah, I'm with you. We're really all about. If you want to come and share your perspective, we'll have you on. If we disagree, we can have a discussion about it. That's very much our approach. You just can't be unhinged, because then we'll.
No, I understand the perspective of the people that feel unhinged. I just don't think that it's effective.
It's two completely different things. You can come on here. Look, we had a Kahanist on the show, right? We had Norman Finkelstein on the show.
Yes.
We're touching a very wide spectrum of beliefs. But we're not going to waste our time debating or arguing with somebody who's not there to engage in good faith, right? So that it's just a waste of time at that point. So when I say unhinged, it's just, I don't, whatever Yosef said, his view, I'm not saying he's unhinged because he thinks that
No, I agree. I'll tell you why.
It was how he acted. He was like, he didn't act.
We all have a limited time, and the audience has limited attention. So every word, when you come to debate or discuss something online, the reason why I want to do it personally is because I've learned many things and I want to share them. All of those experiences, images in my head, pictures of relevant things to this topic. And so to all the people that come in and have too much emotion, understand that you're silencing yourself. The audience doesn't care if you win in this engagement. The only thing you can hope is to share more knowledge from your perspective. That's it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, thank you for joining. I'd love to have you come back on next time we're doing a
Sure, when I fix my camera, perhaps.
Yeah. Where are you from, by the way?
I am from currently New York, but I'm an American citizen, but I have a long heritage and history.
No, but you're Israeli?
I think I still am.
No, I'm picking up on an accent, but it's light. It's not.
My accent is. I can make it. I can probably make it stronger. My accent is slightly Austrian, slightly Russian, but completely maligns.
Oh, interesting. Okay, there's a mix there. Cool, Casimir. Right. Thanks for joining.
Erev Tov.
Talk soon. Erev Tov. Elias, you ready? Cool.
Hi.
What's up, Elias? Hey.
Not so much. I'm listening to you guys.
Yeah, how are you enjoying it?
Very much. It's very interesting to listen to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, good. Do you want me to?
Yeah, share what's on your mind. Question, comments, feedback, whatever it is.
Okay. I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community here in Sweden. So I see Shen, as my brother in Israel. Yeah. However, the situation in Palestine for the LGBTQ plus community isn't great or good. it's bad, and some of them are coming to Israel to clubs and such. What's your opinion about that? How can Israel provide safety for those?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Israel currently is doing to help LGBT members in West Bank and Gaza. They might be doing something. I'm not sure if there's a program. I'm really not familiar. To me, it makes sense that Israel should give refuge to members of the LGBTQ community who are persecuted, for sure.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that makes sense. Yeah.
That's what's actually my question. And sorry because I used the word Palestine. It's not my intention to offend someone. But in Sweden, where I live, I'm half Swedish and half Chaldean. My mother is Chaldean, my father is Swedish. But in Sweden, Palestine is recognized as a state. So it includes West Bank and Gaza. That's why I use.
No, yeah, it is recognized as a state. That's true. Look, if you don't need to apologize for offending, because you can't talk about this topic without offending some people. Some people would be offended by if you said Israel. So no matter, as long as you're going to make as long as you're going to make an effort to engage in a way that's not unnecessarily inflammatory, then you'll be okay. There'll always be some people upset, but you'll be okay.
Yeah, because Gaza and West Bank is called Palestine in Sweden, and in many other countries as well in Europe. That's why I called it Palestine. But I'm sorry if I offended someone.
No worries at all.
That was my question actually. And by the way, I enjoy your show.
Thank you. I'm very happy you enjoyed it. I see you around in the chat, so I'm happy you finally came on to speak. It's great speaking to you. And I wholeheartedly support Israel giving refuge to persecuted members of the LGBT community.
Yeah.
Whether Palestinian or other places of the Middle East too, I think Israel could set a good example by doing that, for sure.
I've actually, because IDCH is commenting on your videos, and he's actually a Jew from Sweden. So I have met a Jew in Sweden, so now we're speaking to each other.
Oh, great.
So that's very nice.
Hey, if this channel is helping build bonds, then that's what we're all about. Thanks for joining, Elias. I hope you join us again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye.
Great. One last person, and then we're gonna go. The one and only P-Ball. What's up, P-Ball?
Oh, hey. I want to talk about the Mossad and Yusuf and maybe the Richard. So the first thing, the funny thing about Mossad, that guy, is he like accuses people of like blocking them because they disagree with other people's beliefs or something. When he already blocked people who disagree with him. I mean, like he blocked me because he blocked me one time. He blocked my main account because I kind of disagreed with what he said. He was like talking about leftism or something. I don't remember, but yeah. So I don't know what he means. I don't know what. How can he
look? We just need to accept people who like come anonymously. They show up to comment sections and act nasty to people. Don't expect them to be consistent. Don't expect them to be honest or kind or any of these positive qualities we actually value in other individuals. Maybe they're like that with their friends and stuff, but these people obviously have something wrong with them if they're going to come and spend hours just being mean to people. They're not interested in engaging in ideas. It's simply personal attack. So, I hear that. You're saying he blocked you for having a different opinion, and then he thinks that we are an authoritarian channel for for banning trolls, yeah, that's not surprising. You know, he's not an emotionally mature human being. But I say we stop talking about these people. We've given them too much attention, too much energy. Red Wine goes, don't kick Mossad out permanently. Maybe time out, but it's not my page. Nobody is ever banned permanently. If somebody wants to ever return, they could reach out to me. As long as we're in agreement for what kind of conduct is acceptable, I will always allow them back. Not a single person. And we've only, if you look at the list of people blocked, it's like 15 people. Most of them like Nazi likes. And I don't just loosely use that word, but yeah, some pretty nasty people. But if any of those 15 people messages me and say, hey, look, I want to get access back to the channel, I'm not going to engage in personal attacks, then I definitely give them a second chance. I need to give people a third chance. But most of these people aren't interested in engaging in any way besides personal attacks. So at the end of the day, you gotta do what you gotta do, and we cut them. They're cut. If they want to come back, they should reach out.
Yeah. And like he accuses leftists for everything. I mean, like literally everything.
Every time.
Like,
look, yeah, go ahead, people. Sorry, I just went on a little.
Yeah, go ahead. I just find it.
No, look, there's this thing. I'm trying to find the best way to articulate it, but people have a need for a boogeyman. We need to come up with, maybe let's call it boogeyman syndrome. Okay, it's where you are able to understand the problems in the world by attributing it to some boogeyman. So if many on the right will say lefties this, lefty that, and there's some people obsessed, their entire identity is dependent on opposing people on the left. And you have people on the left that do the same exact thing with those on the right. Anti-Semites, their boogeyman is the Jews. If you're like I've trashed on wokeness enough today. I don't want to do it again. But many people in social justice movements view one group as the reason why these problems exist. It seems like the world is too complex, and our brain looks for simplicity. So we look for very simple black and white explanations. And why do we need an enemy? There could be like an evolutionary basis to it, that when there's an enemy, that people band together and work better together. So it almost makes sense from an organization perspective to agree who the enemy is. So it's possible that there's something ingrained in us that we always need an enemy. I really feel for these people. It's very innate, but I feel for people who live their lives feeling like there's some enemy out there, because it's just making the world so much darker than it needs to be. So yeah, I hope, wish them all the best. I wish they find a way to engage in a way that's not disrespectful. And yeah, I hope they can have a more nuanced perspective of the world and know there's not just one source that's creating all the world's problems, whether it's the left, whether it's the right, whether it's Jews or any other group out there.
Yeah. So about Yusuf, I don't know, man. You guys don't have good hospitals or something? I mean, how is this guy? He needs help, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about his mental health too much. You're right. Look, I agree. I think we clearly saw something wasn't fully okay there, and I hope he's getting help. I also don't think he lives in Israel. He had a New York accent, and seriously, best of luck to him.
Yeah, maybe he made Aliyah. Maybe I don't know, but
look, I don't want to be in the habit of where we're constantly railing on people who actually have like mental health issues or just personality issues. The solution is either to just put up with them or block them. So whoever's just here causing problems, we're just going to block them. Maybe we'll do like minimal snark for entertainment value, but I don't want to get in the habit where we're just railing on people who like, if you were to meet them in real life, you'd probably pity them because of who they were. So, let's move beyond the people.
Yeah. So about Richard, I didn't understand his point. Like Palestinian should go back to should have right of return only if he was born in Palestine. I mean, he already lives in Palestine. If he left Palestine or something, it's like that will make only 2 or 3% of the Palestinian population returning. So yeah.
So Richard was essentially, he was proposing right of return in a way that sounded sensible and that he thought that Israelis would agree to it. He said he thinks it should start with Palestinians who were born here, not their children and grandchildren. So the first wave should be Palestinians who were born here, but those numbers are so low these days, you know, most are no longer alive, and most won't come in their old age without family. So I don't, it might be a good first step, but I need to see how it would work out.
Yeah, because
yeah.
only people.
I think regardless, I think we should compensate Palestinians that lost property during 48. Like that makes sense. Whatever way the compensation looks, you know, it needs to be discussed. I also would like to see Palestinians be able to return home, but also our solutions need to be grounded in reality. Any solution that is a demographic suicide for Jews living in Israel, Jews are going to resist until the very end. So the question is that the path you want to take?
I mean, yeah. So for like also Richard, I mean, like what he meant is like kind of not gonna really make sense, because if you should be like born in Palestine and like before the Nakba, should be at least 70 or something. And like I don't think there are much people alive, Palestinians who were actually were kicked out of Palestine. So I can't really tell. Or like I don't
Right.
know. Did he like mean like the children and grandchildren of these refugees should go back with their families, or only these people, only like the people who are kicked?
No, he said ultimately anybody. He said it should be just part of immigration policy that Palestinians can return, and they should be Israelis. We should. I'd want to hear the proposal more thoroughly, but you know, I'm definitely open for you know, a coherent plan for right of return or some form of compensation. I think it's needed and will be helpful. So definitely interested in knowing more. Yeah, P-Ball, you want to respond to Starhopper, who is making some accusations against you?
All right.
Saying Adar, P-Ball meant it when he said he'd be happy if his kid was a martyr.
So like first of all, like the first thing he said about martyrdom and shit, he said like he said so he said I would be happy if like my child killed you or something. That's not what martyrdom means.
Oh,
And
is that what you were? He said that to you?
no, yeah, the last time the last time he accused me of that.
We don't need to get. Oh, so I get it. What would you want your child to be a martyr? You could be honest.
Not really. I was like mostly trolling him. You know, I love to troll right-wing Jews so much, to be honest.
So you're just trolling Starhopper. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I know from our conversations, I know you to be a genuinely good person. So, you know.
Yeah.
Cool, people.
Starhop is like the guy that the most like the annoying kid in class. He's like saying things, and he also like follows me on Twitter, and he also like love to say things and accuse Palestinians, and love to like say, no, Palestinians want to kill me, this is the truth, no. And like he like says in the Nakba, the Palestinians tried to kill us. No, we had the right to kick them, which is I don't know about this. He seems like he seems like a like I don't know what a far right wing Jew would say
Right.
from in my perspective.
I hear
Yeah.
that. I hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? Aaron, I see you're asking they should be Israelis. Well, that was Richard's proposal for right of return, that they would return to the land to Israel and become Israelis. Yeah, that was his plan.
I mean, like most Israelis would disagree with that because they don't want to lose demographic majority, and that they think
Right. I
we
mean,
would get
let
genocided.
it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Israelis are not going to willingly give up demographic control unless there's long-standing peace, right? Once there's at least a generation of healing and trust building, then Israelis will stop caring about demographic control. But right now, it is viewed as essential for survival, and it will be viewed as essential for survival for many decades to come. Does that mean it always will? No, but we need to accept that as part of reality. You know, if we want to look for solutions, we need to accept reality as it is and then work to change it. You know.
Yeah. But like I don't think it would be minimized. I don't think like they would like think like that forever, but you'll still have people who will think like that forever because like since they became a minority, they got persecuted every time, and this is why they don't want to be they don't want to be a minority again, because whatever happens, they won't like to be a minority. But like they should accept this, because you can't really have long-standing peace without like trusting the other side. So yeah.
Yep. We're gonna add Nir to the stream. You could stay on. Nir, what's up?
Hey man, what's up? What's up, people?
Are you driving?
Yeah, what's up, yeah?
Yeah, but that's okay. I can hear you on speaker. Can you hear me good? You
Yeah.
need me to pull the side?
No, I hear you. Real quick, just Shai Levi, another 6 shekels. Thanks, Shai, for the super chat. Adar, would you invite Shlomo Sand? Yeah, sure. I would just. I'm by no means an expert on his body of work, so I'd need to do a fair amount of research because I know his views are quite controversial. So I'd want to be adequately prepared before I go into it.
Here's the thing, Adar. I really don't get the stuff that I hear from extremists, both on the left and both on the right, because it seems like they don't really believe in change. See, I don't think that. Let's take Starhope for example. It seems like he doesn't believe that anything can change with Palestinians. Like you can't really do something because it's in their nature to hate us or something like that. So what is the future? What's next for our generation? For me, when I speak on the situation, the only thing I think about is my 3-year-old daughter. I want her to live here in this land. So how can I be able to live with myself if I let her live in a situation where the status quo is preserved, and she will grow up on things that I grew up on, like the Second Intifada and Rabin's assassination. I don't want her to grow up on things like that. I wanted to grow up in a better environment than I did. So we have to think about change. Think about if 200 years ago or wherever that happened, in American history. But think about if the slave would say, there won't be any change, we will be slaves forever. How can you think like that? How can you deny the thought of change? You have to think about change. You have to
Yeah.
believe in change.
You make a good point. This is something I think about all the time. It's hard to get people motivated and mobilized for something that they don't think they could personally impact. So it's like, why would somebody spend any amount of time and energy for a cause that seems futile? So we need to give people hope, right? Have them believe that change is possible, and then you're gonna, by default, see more people. I want to start wrapping it up. So Nir and Peeble, final last words. Just my mom texted me saying that I don't know if you all know, but I live in the same town as my mother. She messaged me saying that dinner's ready soon. So want to go eat with my Ima, As much as I love live stream, yeah, Kfar Vradim. My mom lives a few minutes away.
Yeah,
that's good.
So my final words: please, please, please don't deny change. Believe in change. Embrace change. It's essential in this land to believe in change. We can't just stay in hopelessness and live in hopelessness in this land. This is crazy in my soul.
Amen.
Peace.
Amen, bro. I'm with you on that. Nir, let's get you on for an actual session. You've come on for a few of these, but let's bring you on for an actual session.
I love this.
We're overdue.
Great. Let's do it.
Awesome. Cool, Nir. Thanks for joining. We'll talk soon.
Sure.
Yeah, my final words are the same as Nir. Yeah, my final thoughts are like the same as for like Nir's final words. You should accept change. People change. You should not like just think the status quo would just like stay forever. You shouldn't like just you should like accept the other side and accept that they might change and accept just like that.
Yep,
So,
I'm with you, Peeble. Peeble, thanks for joining. How's everything over on your end, on your side of the border?
Not really. Not bad. Like there's nothing. Like it's like there's like less things happening, less interesting things happening between us and the settlers. Maybe the soldiers. I don't know. Like it's kind of changed actually.
Well, I guess less interesting is good though. Calm is good, right?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, actually, because like since the years it became less it became like less interaction, less fighting, less especially at least where I live, which is like something good. I mean, and maybe like both sides could like maybe accept each other one day. Who knows?
Yeah,
So,
that's what we're doing. That's what we're working on. Good to have you be a part of it, Peeble. Talk soon.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it. We are going to wrap it up. Wow, there's 2 hours and 40. So yeah, friends, thanks for joining. What I think we're going to do is every Thursday, we are going to do a live stream, like either when I interview somebody or a debate or a panel discussion. And Sunday, I know today's Monday, but Sunday, a lot of people requested live streams on Sunday. It's just, in Israel, it's the first day of the week, and I normally start the week off a little slow, so it's not always ideal, but I know it's a great day for a lot of people, so maybe every Sunday we'll start doing a solo live stream where it starts with a discussion on a topic, maybe talk a little bit about current events, and then we can bring on community members to chat, kind of like a radio call-in show. These are fun. People seem to enjoy them. We'll do them. I'll do a few more very brief questions. B-Sun asks, are we bringing Finkelstein back on? Yeah, that's the plan. I just spoke to him today via email. He's very interested. He'd like to come back on, so maybe end of September. Scott Jackson goes, enjoy your dinner, Adar. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Shai, you're asking if you could join. I'd love to have you come on a live stream, but it'd have to be next time. It's so funny. These guys are relentless. Look, hold on. I need to show you. Adar blocks Israelis a lot. Shows what side he's on. Okay. So there's a little crew of these like reactionary type people. They have like a Discord. They have their YouTube channel. And out of all the ones I've met there, none of them like make coherent arguments. They're not going to engage in somebody's ideas. They all just accuse you of all sorts of things, being a lefty. This person says, we see what side you're on, right? It's only going to be accusations, personal attacks, never engage in the merit of your ideas. So they have a little community. So I'm sure when Mossad got blocked, I'm laughing. Yeah, Jabu goes, I muted you. Yeah, whoever Jabu is, this is probably Mossad on another account. So they have this little Discord community that they probably share stuff. They're like, oh, I just got blocked. Everyone go to the channel. I'm so sorry that I live rent-free in your heads. Like, guys, you don't deserve this. You deserve to live a life filled with happiness. Don't give me too much thought. Like the fact that you get so triggered by our conversations but still spend hours listening, like, are you a masochist? Why do you put yourself through this? You deserve better. Don't let me live rent-free in your head. If you're truly triggered by this content, don't watch it. Like, why do that to yourself? God, Jabu. Anybody who's part of this crew is just going to come to make accusations, just block. The way to not get blocked is to either act respectful or just engage with people on the merits of their ideas. Very simple. And if you can't do that, well, I'm sorry. Oh, man. Tenet goes, they're not reactionary. You have not met a reactionary before. Possible I used the wrong word to describe them, but whatever it is, you know, it's not a crew that has many redeemable qualities, let's say. At least not from my experience with them. They might feel the same way about me. The one clear difference between myself and them is I don't spend hours listening to their content, engaging in personal attacks. I'll engage with any of them on their ideas, but no, I'm not going to waste my time personally attacking people. So yeah, cool. Or it says, I feel like we need more informative sessions, not only opinions. Yeah, we could definitely set stuff up, bring on people who specialize in certain on certain topics and kind of break things down. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Or if you ever want to come on, let me know. Okay, cool. So Noam is saying there are still people who are both disrespectful and did not engage people based on those merits, and they were not blocked. It's possible there's someone who will come in and be disrespectful, but if they're here every week and I notice them, like it takes time for me to notice somebody. But all the left-wing trolls, they're also blocked. We've blocked more people, more anti-Israel people than pro-Israel people. So again, that's just not, anybody who's going to come every week and contribute nothing but toxicity, find another place to do that. And I feel like we spent too much time talking about people we don't like today. It's not a good use of our time, but it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm seeing a lot of suggestions and stuff. If you have suggestions, criticism, feedback, whatever it may be, questions, reach out to me. It's hard for me to follow everything in chat. My contact information is down below. As always, this was fun. See you Thursday. Thursday we're going to have on, hold on, I don't want to get the names wrong. Sarah and Ellie, right? Sarah, Simon, and Ellie, did I get that right? Yeah, Sarah Simon and Ellie Cohen, they're both very active fighting anti-Semitism. I have certain concerns with how the fight of anti-Semitism is being had. I don't know Sarah yet. I'm looking forward to speaking to her. I know Ellie is very sensible when she talks about anti-Semitism. She's somebody who does it in a way which I respect. So I want to kind of bounce ideas off of her and see what it's all. Last one from Starhopper. We'll end it on a Starhopper. Adar, you take valid points and say they're hateful or toxic. It's just your lefty, all in capital, point of view. So Starhopper, I'm going to give you a challenge. Find one time that happened where somebody actually made an argument, okay, that didn't involve a personal attack, and I called it toxic and hateful. I'll give you 500 shekels. I don't expect anything in return. 500 shekels if you could find me doing that. Ball's in your court, buddy. Anyways, so yeah, this was fun. Much love to you all. See you on Thursday.